Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in this video I'll show you how to do 3 million damage to another player in a single global. The Eternal Palace raid brought us a lot of powerful weapons, and today we're going to be abusing not really an exploit, but rather an unintended mechanic out in the open world where you can one-shot other players. This is by no means a serious video, but rather an interesting look at something that could be done in the game. So relax, kick back, and enjoy the video. The Eternal Palace is a wonderful raid, great for the story of World of Warcraft, some really good and challenging fights, Azara, which is one of the biggest villains in World of Warcraft, but also it is a place where you can get some powerful weapons from. Already most of you should be aware of the staff you can get from the final boss, Azara, from the Eternal Palace. The staff from that fight has a very interesting effect and has been used already by multiple players in order to score some crazy, hilarious one-shots in the open world. The way the staff works is every time you do damage or heal an ally, you build up a charge, and the more charges you build up that count as stacks for your staff. Once your character gets in a critical condition, whether mana or health is very low, the staff will proc, unleashing every one of the stacks that you build up, doing damage and healing to allies. A lot of classes have already been able to use the staff in order to create some hilarious one-shot exploits, where they would build it up for a little bit, go into the enemy territory, get on purpose low on health or mana, and then proc the staff one-shotting any enemy around them. In today's video, we got for you guys another powerful weapon from the Eternal Palace that has a very unintended mechanic that regards with the open world. This is going to be just something for fun, but this is still pretty broken and quite hilarious. The weapon you're going to want to aim for is going to be the Diver's Folly. This weapon is an agility only weapon, so if you are a rogue, demon hunter, enhancement shaman, or etc., then you will be available to get this weapon. However, if you have a friend that has a spec and a role that may be able to acquire this weapon, like let's say you're a warrior, and you might have a friend help you acquire this weapon so you can still use it for your exploit. The weapon itself has a very interesting effect where on a low chance to proc, it will start collecting any charges around you. The charges are generated simply by doing damage, and a portion of the damage will be stored to the weapon and will be unleashed to 3 unsuspecting enemies once the weapon is done charging. The weapon itself functions off of the damage you do, so in a group situation where you have a lot of enemies, this is where you really want to go as hard as you can with this weapon, because when it discharges, it'll do damage proportional to how much damage you did while it was charging. In dungeon situations, this is a favorite weapon by demon hunters and rogues, and they'll usually try to see if they can line it up either in a boss fight where they can unleash a bunch of damage when the weapon is charging, or in a group of enemies, which is far easier to line up. But even with all the damage in the world, it usually is impossible to get any kind of damage that's over 1 million, and this is something you can do with this weapon in specific situations consistently. One of the things that World of Warcraft introduced way back in the day when they were trying to solve their level squish issue is scaling, how abilities and certain attacks scale on enemies depending on what level they are. Back in Legion, our health numbers would go into the millions, so being hit by a level 60 player, they could never do enough damage to break through all those millions and millions of health. And as Blizzard keeps adding more levels, they had to do something with the health bar, but also with the numbers of abilities. They can't go up, so instead they have to be a bit multiplicative and interesting in terms of how they portray the strength of a character and the raw amount of damage that they can put out. One of the things you will notice is, let's say if you're attacking an enemy as a level 120 in any of the new zones, even if it is a critter, you will do fairly low damage. However, the damage you're able to put out to anything that is of a low level world is definitely not intended to function with this weapon. What I'm trying to say is the way the Blizzard did the scaling is the lower the enemy's level to your perspective level, the more astronomical damage you do to them. Even though the enemy's health is going to be lower than yours, for some reason the damage you do to them is just so scaled so high, and you're able to obliterate them for insane Legion-like numbers. For some reason, this does not scale properly with the weapon. For some reason, the weapon takes exactly the amount of damage you do to things, even though there is scaling involved in order to make it feel more powerful than the target that is of lower level. For some reason, the weapon takes everything that you do, no matter how much damage you output to anything, and just kind of scrunch the numbers together. Maybe Blizzard will do something better with the scaling in the future, but right now the unintended mechanic is any damage you do while the weapon is charging, no matter how high the damage is supposed to be in order to make you feel powerful, it takes it as a real data. On top of it, you can also combine a couple different effects in order to make this weapon even more powerful. There's effects like on-use trinkets or any of your cooldowns that might empower your character, but also essences like Blood of the Enemy, which gives you a 25% chance to crit your enemy, and those subsequent crits do 25% more damage if you have it at rank 3. So the idea is to start a duel or start some kind of world PvP and make sure your weapon is primed so it is charging. Once your weapon is charging, you want to do as much damage to lower level enemies as possible. The scaling will allow you to do astronomical damage to critters and other lower level enemies, and a portion of that astronomical damage, which is more than enough to one-shot a player, will be stored in the weapon. Afterwards, the weapon is ready to discharge, and even on an auto attack, it'll strike up to 3 enemies for the same amount of damage, which can be quite huge. If you layer that with any of the other cooldowns that might increase your damage, increase your chance to crit, or anything of rather sort, then you will guarantee have yourself any kind of class one shot using the Diver's Folly. There is stipulations with Diver's Folly, however, it doesn't work in the current world PvP area, so in anywhere zones of Kultiris or Zuldazar, you will not be able to use this. For some reason, the critters in those worlds do not have any kind of scaling to them, and this is something that Blizzard might have to fix with how this weapon interacts, but for whatever reason, the critters out in Kultiris and Zuldazar simply don't take nearly as much damage. Most of the damage is actually quite normalized, so unless you're able to hit an enemy, let's say Toy, that takes more damage, or maybe one of the battle standards that you would use in PvP that might also take a little bit more damage because it's technically lower level, then there's no real way to use it out in the current world. However, outside of Orgrimmar and Stormwind, which are still popular dueling spots, you're more than welcome to take advantage of this new opportunity. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. This was a much less serious of a video, but I wanted to share with you guys the big one-shot that is currently available with the Diver's Folly. I haven't seen anybody cover this so far, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another video.